to Attenuation, a weekly podcast where two friends come together to drink beer, discuss beer styles and trends, and just generally ruminate on the meaning of life, aka beer. If you enjoy your time with us, we invite you to become a weekly listener and subscribe to the podcast. Without further ado, here is this week's episode.
Hello and welcome to episode 4 of Attenuation, a beer podcast. My name is Jason and I'm joined with my best friend since 8th grade, Steven. How's it going,
Hello.
Steven?
I'm good.
So today we have a good episode planned for you. We are going to be covering some trends in the craft beer world that we've detected recently.
Pluses and minuses to those trends.
But as always, we're going to start with our beer tastings.
Yeah.
So I will go first. I've been practicing over here because I'm worried I'm going to butcher the pronunciation of this beer. But I am drinking Matroyshka. They're based out of Astoria, Oregon. And this is a Russian Imperial Stout. It's 12% alcohol by volume, and then it says it's aged for 1 year in Buffalo Trace Bourbon and Westward Whiskey barrels.
Nice.
So I'm pretty excited about this one. I actually did pour it a little while ago. I'm letting it kind of it was in the fridge. It's really cold, but I find that if you let porters and stouts warm up a little bit, sometimes you get a little bit more of the flavors. So I'm going to give you the nose notes, and then I'm going to pass it to you while I get some impressions of the taste.
Okay.
But I will say on the nose, I'm getting a ton of booze and bourbon, and then coffee and a hint of chocolate. I have a feeling this is going to be a powerful one. So what are you drinking today, Steven?
What did you say your ABV was?
12%.
Okay. All right.
I didn't learn my lesson from last week. But
Yeah, no, you don't mess around.
maybe I'll just drink half of this one. Yeah, right. What are you getting into?
Okay, well, it's for the first time ever, a podcast exclusive. I'm drinking a stout.
Are you really? I'm so excited. What are you drinking?
So this is from Untitled Art. I should have probably done more research. I think they're sort of like a gypsy brewer. Yeah.
Okay,
So this
define gypsy brewer for me and the audience.
Okay. So a gypsy brewer is, I mean, I guess I should have known the definition before I said that, but I think what happens is that you get these like brewers and they don't have like their facilities, or they don't have canning facilities. They don't have their own brew facilities. So they brew and can at other larger, places that do have their own facilities. And I assume they just sort of pay them some sort of money to basically rent their equipment.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
So I think they just don't want to make, I don't know if it's just they don't want to make the like financial commitment to have the tap room and the brew facilities and all that stuff. But anyway, it's called Untitled Art. This one was brewed at Neon Raptor Brewing Company in Waunakee, Wisconsin.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah. So, anyways, Untitled Art, but they brew lots of different places. This is a stout with banana puree, cinnamon, vanilla, and milk sugar. This is very apropos to our episode today. Yeah. But so it's a Bananas Foster Stout from Untitled Art, 8%. So a nice mellow stout for us newbies,
That sounds actually really good. I'm kind of jealous.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited about this one. I have had one other beer with banana, like one other stout with banana in it. It was at the Great American Beer Festival. It was the New Holland, what's their Dragon's Milk?
Dragon's Milk, yes.
And they had like 6 different variations of the Dragon Milk at the festival, and one of them was a banana one, and it was so good. Tasted like banana chocolate milk.
Dragon's Milk is a great one. I don't know. They didn't mention it. I don't think I mentioned it, but it should have been maybe mentioned on the Gateway Beers episode for stouts. I think Dragon's Milk is a good place to start.
Yeah, it is a good one. I mean, it's definitely heavier. It's not super easy drinker,
Yeah.
but no, it's a good, like, especially gateway into like more complex stouts for sure.
Yeah, I still actually really like Dragon Smoke.
So I'm getting, yeah, like basically chocolate milk with like the hint of banana. I'm not really getting the cinnamon on the nose. Um, and then that a little bit of that sort of uh, like cooked alcohol sort of that you would get
Mm.
with the bananas
Hmm.
Foster, right? All right, I'm going in.
All right, I'm excited for you.
Yeah, I mean that's good. It drinks like chocolate milk.
Okay.
Like that's how it feels going down. So it's like boozy chocolate milk is what it tastes like to me. I don't like the banana's not super strong. Um, I almost think the banana lends more to the mouthfeel.
Mhm.
Like that thicker sort of smoothie chocolate milk kind of feel to it. Um, it's not playing a lot into the flavor. It's mostly just very milk chocolatey sort of Nesquik flavors with that like hint of booze burning on the back end. So I don't know if I would drink it again. I probably will because I have a few of them. um, it was a 4 pack, but luckily it's only a 12-ounce can, which is cool.
And
Because
it's only eight
sometimes,
percent.
yeah, 8% 12-ounce can that's doable for me.
Yeah, that is doable. All right, well, you keep trying that, and you're gonna have to tell me if you give it a star or no star. Star meaning you would pay and buy it again. But you mentioned boozy, so this Matroyshka, if I'm saying it right, is quite boozy. So it's
Yeah.
interesting. That's one of the things I do notice. Like, it's not necessarily like better or worse, although I guess I am biased. I do think when a beer has a high ABV, if it shows a lot of the boozy flavor, I don't really like that. Like, I've had 12% and stronger stouts where the alcohol taste isn't really present, and
Mm-hmm.
that always impresses me because I'm like, how are they hiding that? Um,
Yeah.
but on this one, I'm getting on the entrance, it's sweet and boozy right up front, and I'm getting a little of the bourbon, and then it kind of develops into dark fruit coffee, and then finishes as chocolate and vanilla. But then in the aftertaste, there's like a pretty strong wave of the booze flavor too. So it's not necessarily a bad thing, but I don't think I would drink this one. I don't know if I would get this one again because I have a feeling in these first few sips, if it's this boozy, um, it's going to be pretty intense to finish. And so we'll see.
Yeah.
I'll
Do
let
you
you know
think
when.
it's a partially because of the barrel aging? You get more of that or
Yeah, and so it's barrel aged in bourbon and whiskey barrels. So yeah, that might be attributing to that flavor profile. And maybe that's something other people might enjoy that a lot. But I like it if there's a little bit of the alcohol heat slash booze. But I'm not a huge fan of it.
yeah, I had it I had like a I think it was a double IPA from Adroit Theory the other day, and it was kind of the same way. Like it was a 9-10 percenter, but you definitely felt it on a night from an IPA, which like again I think is what they were going for, honestly, because you read the reviews like, and tons of people would say like I love that alcohol burn.
Hmm.
And for me it's just like it was too much. Like I think I could see a little bit into like how that flavor was melding with the hot flavors and stuff. But it was like too strong for me. But I could see how
Yeah.
it wouldn't be too strong for some people. So,
Well, no, it makes sense. I mean, this beer is really highly rated, so it's all subjective, right? It's what you like, and you got to figure
yeah,
out what you like. There's not really right or wrong answers. But for me, I'm just not as huge fan of it. If it's that powerful booze flavor.
yeah.
So we'll see. Of course, when I get like maybe a third of the way into this, I'll feel a little bit different because
um,
I'll
yeah,
be feeling the Imperial Stout
yeah.
with a
I
lot of
really like this.
yeah.
um, I will make another note on this. I feel like the carbonation is too strong.
Interesting.
Um, because it's like imagine drinking chocolate milk but carbonated, like
Yeah.
very very light. Like not like this would be good like a nitro stout. Like a more thick foamy carbonation. This is more of like that light, like soda carbonation, and it doesn't. I don't know. It doesn't quite feel right. But
No, that's a good observation. I think that is something that really plays into a beer. And like you mentioned, some beers are finished on nitro, and they could really change the overall, taste and flavor, and especially
yeah,
mouthfeel.
the
Yeah.
bubbles are finer.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So good thoughts, good beers.
Yeah, I'll let you know. I'm leaning towards not giving this one the rebuy star, but we'll see.
I would say the same thing for mine. I don't think I would buy this again. But
All right, cool. So for our news topic, do you want to discuss the news that came out a few days ago that I'm
yeah,
very, very sad about?
yeah. I'm not one to like put cheesy little sound effects into our podcast, but this is where you use the one that goes wah 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 because we got some very sad news this week. Just yesterday, the Great American Beer Festival put out a press release that they are not going to hold the in-person event in 2021.
Major bummer.
Cue the sad sound effect again. Yeah. So last year, of course, they canceled. Like we knew that was going to happen.
Sure.
Coronavirus has crushed us in so many ways. That being one, but yeah. So we really obviously expected it to be canceled last year. And they did a passport event. So essentially, you bought a passport. I think you got a T-shirt or something, and then also tons of breweries, more breweries than would have like come to the festival, like just tons of breweries nationwide signed on. And so if you had the passport and you went to those breweries it runs for like a month, I think. If you go during that time to those breweries and you show them your passport, they'll have something for you. Like they'll have something special, or there's some sort of discount that you get, something like that. It makes it a little hard, especially if you're not in a market that has tons of breweries or has tons of breweries that signed on to participate. So we're pretty lucky. I think in the Sacramento area, in the Austin area, there were tons of breweries participating. I actually didn't participate in it. I think I might this year just because I'm missing that kind of thing. But yeah, so they're going to do that again this year. And then the next year in 2022, that's when they are going to return to in-person, hopefully. And that's the 40th anniversary as well. So it will be a very big party, I think. Couple years off and then come back to the 40th year. It's going to be special, I think.
Okay, well, yeah, I'll see you in 2022 then.
Yeah, right? Something to look forward to, but definitely very sad that we will not be going to the festival this year.
Yeah, I'm pretty sad about it, but I guess it just like gives us something to look forward to.
Yeah.
And yeah, if it is the 40th anniversary and the first one they're going to be doing in 2 years, it should be pretty awesome.
Yep. They'll have lots of time to think out the floor plan. Which they change every year and bungle every year. But,
all right.
Yeah.
So, do you want to get into the main topic?
Yeah, let's do it.
So, I had wrote down a few trends I have noticed in the craft world that's been developing. So, maybe I'll start with my first one and we can pass back and forth.
Okay.
So my first topic is the rise of the can and the death of the bomber. So it's funny because time is always so elusive to me, but I don't know. I don't know how many years ago this transition started, but there was a time when you'd go to the craft beer section in the grocery store and it was all bombers. So, those larger glass, and I don't even know. Do you know how many ounces are in those? Are there's like 375 milliliters or whatever, I think.
No, like a 375, that's more like a 12 ounce. They were 500
Oh, you're
milliliters,
right. I think they're 22 ounces.
something like
Yeah,
that. Yeah, 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 yeah.
I should have done my research. But yeah, so that's for a long time when you got a craft beer, a lot of times they came in that big, what's referred to as a bomber. And I used to think they were really cool. This is related to one of my neurotic hobbies surrounded beer, which I have many, but I like collecting the caps. So one of the things I really liked about bombers is you got a cap because I like to collect the caps from all the different breweries.
Yeah.
But I will say now that those are starting to disappear, and what's appearing in their place is these cans, 16 ounce cans or 12 and 16 ounce cans, and a lot of times they'll come in a 4 pack, but a lot of times you can buy them individually, which is really nice. And I will say I kind of like them better, just because it's a more manageable amount to drink
Yeah.
in one sitting, especially because I'm a big stout fan. So it's like, man, you got to have someone to share a bomber with. I can't just sit down and drink one of those by myself if it's like 12 or 13%.
Yeah, it's too much. It's too much. I kind of like the can. I don't know what it is about the can that um I like other than the amount. I don't know. It seems more convenient. You can hook them onto those. They have all the little plastic, um, the plastic like 4 pack,
Yeah,
six
I
pack
save
things.
those. I save those
Yeah, I
because
love those things.
yeah, you could just clip cans in and out of them. So
Yeah, so sometimes transport is much easier that way too.
yeah, I think it's all probably pros, except for me. My own personal lament is the loss of the cap.
Yeah.
So,
And I
but
will
it's
say I think the can art is better.
that's true. I think it is much easier to print on a can or paint on a can, however they apply the art, than it is onto a glass bottle because you got to do it on the label. And
Right.
I've a lot of the cans have like full art across the whole can,
Right.
and they do look amazing.
Yeah. I
So,
think just for the can art, I'm a fan.
so maybe I'll just have to start collecting cans.
It's really funny. I have this bad habit of pouring a beer and then just leaving my can on the counter. I'm not usually a slob, but apparently in that regard I am. And my wife's always like, "Did you want to keep this? Like, are you like saving this?" I'm like, "Oh, no," but but just the fact that she would assume that I might want to save the can is a tribute to how awesome these cans look these days.
I actually will admit I do have a small collection. I'm actually looking at it right now. I've
Yeah,
saved a few cans, but I have to be careful because the bottle caps are easy because they don't take up that much space. But
right.
I think the cans could overwhelm some the
anything
office pretty
from
quickly.
anything from Adroit Theory or uh, Anchorage, like it's like the coolest, like dankest art. It's awesome.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think I didn't think about that until you mentioned it, but I think we've seen an improvement in overall art when with the transition to cans.
Another one to check out is Resident Culture. I think they're in. I can't remember Reno, maybe. I can't remember where they are. Anyway, their can art's just so awesome.
Okay, nice. I'm not familiar, but I'll have to look some of it up.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's just something I've noticed. Bombers are just slowly disappearing. It seems like they're almost completely gone at this point. But
Yeah, I like the cans. I think that the storage, not just the transport, but also the storage in the fridge, just is easier too.
that makes sense. You
Yeah,
could stack them for one thing.
yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
Also, side note to this, the change from growler to crowler.
Oh,
As
that's a good
well.
point. I didn't think about that.
Um, Crowler being a like sealed can that they do it. You go to a tap room and have any beer poured into a can, and they have their own little can sealer there. And those tend to be bigger. They're like 32-ounce cans. They're like a big can. But that's a cool way because it tends to last a little bit longer than a growler. You open that growler, you gotta drink that whole thing. But
Yeah, that makes sense.
I
Yeah,
mean,
I
you kind of have to
actually
drink the whole thing with the crowler too, but you don't have to drink it as soon. So
yeah, that makes sense. I hadn't thought about that, but I do love growlers. It's really cool, and I like the little machine that I like watching them pour it and then use a little machine to seal it up. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Okay,
And I don't
so
know if like,
sorry, go ahead.
sorry, maybe one more thing on that is like the recyclability. I mean, I guess you can recycle glass too, but uh, it's maybe more environmentally friendly
Oh yeah, I never
if
thought
we
about that.
recycle our cans.
Never thought about that aspect of it either.
Yeah.
All right, so that was my first trend I've noticed. Do you have a trend you have
It's a
noticed?
good one. There is one I have very much noticed, and that is milk in my beer.
Are you talking about
More
lactose?
more specifically, milk sugar,
Oh, okay, yeah.
or lactose. Yes, and lactose is an unfermentable sugar um, that is being added to beers, and because it's unfermentable, it's going to add sweetness because it's not being turned into alcohol. And it's also going to add sort of this kind of mouthfeel thickening to the beer. So what's interesting is it's being used for every style, really. So it's being used in sours lots of times along with vanilla or along with marshmallow. Um, and it's just to like basically make these what they're calling smoothie sours. So they're heavily fruited, and then this lactose and vanilla is added to add even more of like this fruit puree thickness. Um, I don't. I think I mentioned before on this podcast that smoothie sours are not my favorite. I think sometimes, I think the reason for that is because the marshmallow and the lactose kind of mellows out the sourness. And I like sour beers. I like my sour beers to actually be sour. So sometimes it's just a little bit too like, oh, I'm just drinking fruit juice, like I don't get any of that sort of like fermentation, why my beer is sour kind of feeling. Um, but so not only is it being used in sour, it's also being used in IPAs
Mm.
to make the very trending milkshake IPA. Again, another sort of like heavily fruited, where you take the base IPA and you have these like lots of times I think they're using like a base hazy IPA, so it's already sort of a fruit forward, like tropical fruity, hoppy beer, and then they just add extra fruit and they add the lactose, just to sort of like thicken up the mouthfeel and mellow out some of the basically all the bitterness, and just let the hops underneath kind of amp up the fruity flavors. Because I've had milkshake IPAs where I was like, I don't like, I didn't feel like I was drinking an IPA to me. Like there's no hop flavor like at all.
Interesting. Hmm.
And I think really it's just in those beers, like the hoppiness is like not really the point. It's like that's the base beer, but it's just like the backbone to like a fruity, thicker beer. So
Gotcha. So yeah, I understand, and it's actually funny. I think you sent me a picture the other day of a beer you got at a restaurant where they actually put actual marshmallows
yeah,
into the beer.
oh yeah, we will put that picture up online, because it's pretty funny. And I was even I think it was like a tropical smoothie sour or something, and I don't know if it was brewed with marshmallows or what, but anyway, the lady was like, "Do you want marshmallows in it?" And I was just like, um,
Excuse me.
yeah. Like, why do you even have to ask? Like, if that's something you do, I want it.
That's amazing.
Like, I might hate it, but please do it. Um, and it was kind of fun. They were like those. They were like those. Those hot cocoa mix marshmallows.
Oh,
They
okay. Yeah.
they're like dehydrated, and then they sort of
Yes.
rehydrate in the fluid. That's what they were. So it was kind of weird. But I don't know. It worked. I don't think I would ever do it again. But
Interesting. No
it
star,
was
no rebuy star.
no, but that it was fun. It was definitely a fun little gimmick.
So it sounds like. So what is your impression overall of the, these kind of adding the lactose and the milk sugars? It sounds like maybe you're not a fan of this, or
I don't know. I've had I would say I dislike more smoothie sours than I like for sure.
okay,
I will add my first foray even into this lactose world was I got a few beers from Beer Works. I think they're in Chicago. Um, they have a beer, an IPA. It's like a double dry hopped double IPA, and it's called Astronaut Ice Cream.
oh,
And
we
it's
drank
brewed,
this together.
yeah, and it's brewed with lactose, and it's so good. But it's a hoppy beer. I mean, it's a hop first beer, and lactose is simply just added for mouthfeel to just thicken it up. It's almost like it's a hazy IPA, like amped up, even more hazy because of the lactose. But other than that, like all the hop flavors are there. There's no other nonsense. It's just the lactose is just, um, it's just purely mouthfeel for that one, I think.
Yes, and I actually remember that beer. I love that beer, and I think that was one of the first milkshake IPAs I'd ever had. And I do think I agree with you, kind of on the sour front and the IPA front. I think if it's detracting from the sourness and or like the hop profile, not as much of a fan of it. And I mean, it's all
Yeah.
subjective. I mean, I'm sure it's very popular. It seems like it's very trendy right now, so people obviously like them.
Yeah.
But yeah, and
And
maybe I'm.
it's also showing up in stouts.
Mm,
Um, in the stout I drank tonight. Um, it's in there, which again I think with the stouts though it's much more of a mouthfeel thing
okay, yeah.
and a sweetness thing.
Hmm.
You know, you can put it in a dessert stout to sweeten it up. I don't necessarily think it's doing anything more than that. And I guess even in the sours and the IPAs, it's almost as if it's the combination of the lactose and the like heavy fruit purees. Like I think those two combining is kind of ruining the base beer. Um, Not necessarily the lactose. The beers I've had that were just lactose added to them, I liked. But when they really, really thicken them up with fruit and lactose and vanilla, I don't know. It's almost too much.
Step too far.
But they're very popular,
Yeah.
super popular, and if people like them, they're gonna make them. So
Yeah, of course. Well, it's funny that you mentioned stouts because that brings me to my next trend I've noticed. And I could be wrong on a lot of this. Like I said, time. I lose track of time very easily. But I feel like it's pretty new that I see a lot of stouts that have cinnamon and or chilies in them now, which is pretty interesting. But I will say, I am a fan of of both one and or in combination of the cinnamon and the chilies in the stout. I think they were both present in one of the beers I had previously, although I didn't super detect the chilies. But something about those two flavors, they do lend themselves to the stout overall. And kind of like what you were saying, I find that if done right, they don't detract because they're not, as long as they're not overpowering, you're just sort of adding complexity and flavor profiles to the beer overall without overpowering it. I think if I've had a couple, I think there's a habanero IPA, if I'm not mistaken, and
mm-hmm.
obviously they're doing that to make it really spicy, and it is quite spicy. So in that case, the chili is taking kind of center stage, which is
Yeah,
okay in that case. But I wouldn't really like a stout if it was really spicy. But if they're adding in just a touch of it, so it's like it's appearing in your overall impression of the beer, but it's not taking center stage. I do kind of like this trend. In fact, I think the Rusty Nail is And I think you got me that.
Yeah, that's Fremont Brewing in Seattle. They make the Rusty Nail. That's like licorice. Yeah, there might be some cinnamon in that one.
I think there is because I want to say I could be wrong. I'm looking it up right now. I think that was the first stout I had that had cinnamon in it, and I was very impressed.
Hmm.
Yeah, there's definitely cinnamon in that one, and I liked it a lot. And I think that's what kind of opened my eyes to, hey, cinnamon in a
Yeah.
stout is really good. Yeah,
Well,
so
I think,
that's an oatmeal stout out of Fremont Brewing. That's correct. Yeah.
and then you also like that El Zucatan, I think, from I
Oh,
can't
that's
remember what
right.
they're called. Bad knowledge on my part. But that
Um,
one I think has chilies in it.
I'm
I don't
looking
know if
it up.
cinnamon, but it's chili, I think.
It's Hubbard's Cave.
Hubbard's Cave, yeah.
Yeah. Yes, El Zakatan. I believe there's a couple of variants of it. So actually, I have a coffee variant coming, which I'm pretty excited about. Although, admittedly, I'm not a huge fan of coffee in stouts, but I really liked
Hey,
the
we're all
original.
branching out, okay?
I know, right?
All
I'm
right, we're
challenging myself. But I really like the El Zakatan, the regular one. So I was like, you know what? I'll try the coffee one. So that one, oh, so this is definitely on topic. I don't know if there's cinnamon in that one, but there is chilies. So so that is kind of the example of the two things we see added to beer: cinnamon and chilies.
well, we had a few
Did we have a
mole.
variance?
Oh, do you remember the mole beers or whatever?
Yes. Yeah, there were
Yeah.
some
So
mole
like,
stouts.
yeah. So a lot of that like sort of chocolate and heat thing working good for beer.
Yeah,
It's
I'm a
working out
fan of
well.
this trend. I'm a huge fan of. Like, bring it on. Like, I just keep make them. I like the mole stouts. I like the cinnamon stouts. I like the chili stouts. So I'm definitely been enjoying this. No, you know what? You're right, Stephen. I should have never questioned you. I found the
About
notes
what?
about El Zacaton. It says cinnamon. It's in the flavor profile: cinnamon sticks and chilies. So you're correct.
Ah.
Another example of Vader. See, this is why I'm the color commentator, and you're the knowledge guy. You're the technical guy.
Yeah, sure. I just never forget a beer. That's my
Oh.
problem.
So yeah, I'm a fan of this trend, and it may continue. It has the attenuation seal of approval.
Nice. Yeah. Um, yeah, it's a funky one, but it does like make sense, Like I said, the chocolate and the heat, sort of that Mexican hot chocolate kind of thing. Um, it works in other things. And I think what's funny is in all these like new trends and styles, it's almost like beer is becoming sort of culinary,
Mm.
right? They're taking like things that you would use in like food preparation or baking, tons of pastry stouts, um, tons of pie sours, right? So like um, trying to make a peach cobbler sour, um,
Yep, that's a good point. I see a
a
ton of
key
those.
key
Mhm.
lime pie sour. There's one I can't remember who brews it. There's a key lime pie sour. They those like Marie Calendar
Yeah.
key lime pies. They literally just unwrapped a bunch of those and threw them in the
Are
the
you
mash.
serious?
Yeah,
That's
no joke.
hilarious.
Yeah, it's crazy. I saw a picture today on Instagram from I wish I knew what brewery it was. Anyway, I can't remember. They were stuffing those those like oatmeal pies.
Hmm.
Like what is it, the Little
Little
Debbie or
Debbie's.
something? The oatmeal pies. They were stuffing those into the fermentation.
Oh my
Like
goodness.
they will do anything these days
That's
to just to be able to write on the can that they
yeah.
brewed it with Little Debbie oatmeal pies. But no, I mean, so there's a lot of like culinary innovation. I don't know if it's innovation or just culinary flavors and flavor profiles are being like used in beer making, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, they're gonna leave no stone unturned, right?
Yeah. So I probably should even add to the lactose and vanilla is the graham cracker. like because
Oh.
with a lot of these sours that are they're trying to make them taste like pie. They do use cinnamon a lot, and they use graham crackers in the mash. So it's kind of cool. I never, I don't know. I don't always like when I drink it go like, oh yeah, this is definitely graham cracker. So sometimes I don't know like how much flavor of that really gets into the beer, but I don't know. I've had a couple. I had one peach cobbler sour that had some cinnamon in it. It was amazing. It was like drinking. It was like eating cobbler. It was really good. Um, and then I've had some like key lime pie gozas that were pretty good because that like sort of tartness and salinity kind of plays well with the like the tart filling and the like salty crust. So I will say like it can work. I see it work. I just see it not working so many times,
Yeah.
which I guess is fine. Like I mean, brewers are gonna make beer, and I think it's cool that they're innovating and trying new things. I mean, that's why we're here. That's why we're at where we're at. You know, because
Right.
they started making beers that not everyone liked, and trying new things. So yeah, I think sometimes they go a little too far, but it's fun, and it's also why I like beer compared to wine, because wine is so sort of like snobby. Like it's only the grapes, you know, like whatever comes from the grapes, that's what you get. And with beer, you just get to mess around and add stupid stuff, and
You mean you
you
can
know,
stuff? You don't. You mean that stuffing oatmeal little hostess or little Debbie's into a wine? It would be frowned upon.
some yeah, I don't know if you're winning any competitions in Napa
Oh, that's
with
not
your
any.
oatmeal pie wine, but
That's not
maybe.
fun. Well, the other reason beer is way better than wine is that you can drink world class beer for
For about
$10 a bottle, and
yeah,
I don't think I'll ever be drinking any world class wine because you got to add a zero to that or
couple
two,
zeros.
yeah, a
Yeah,
couple zeros to the end of that number.
yeah, yeah. Beer's very approachable.
Yeah, so I'm gonna stick with beer. And so what is so that I think that covered that was the cinnamon and chili and stouts. We went on a couple tangents.
Yeah.
Do you have the next trend you've noticed?
This is the problem is you start getting me talking about something and I'll like think of a million things while we're talking about it. So I apologize.
No, it's the tangents are the fun. I think. I'll
um,
always get you back on track. I got notes here.
yeah, yeah. For the listeners, you will start to understand that I'm the tangent guy. And then as I go off on a tangent and farther off on a tangent, I'll forget what I was even talking about in the first place. But Jason always knows. He always knows.
It's
It's
called
been a
the
staple of our friendship
it's
for
called the stack. That's what I call it. Every
yeah.
time you deviate, I make a little mental note, and I'm gonna drill you back in.
Basically, his brain works, mine doesn't. But
No, that's not true at
luckily,
all.
combined, we make it work. So
That's exactly what it is. It's the synergy between the
yeah.
two minds.
um, yeah. So well, there was another trend I wanted to talk about, which was and this one I think is cool. So this is a trend back towards more I don't know. I don't want to use the word basic, just easier drinking styles, less complex styles, maybe, but like lagers and pilsners. So, um, like we like to make fun of the macro breweries, the Budweisers and the Coors. But first of all, they're a much larger portion of the market, the beer market. First
Oh
of
yeah.
all, craft beer market is like 13% of the world beer market. So, um, so they have huge markets. Um, so they're making beer that people are drinking.
Hmm.
Um, and so what craft beer is kind of trying to do, I think, is say, okay, they make a lager. We can make a lager, but like a good one. Like Like, it doesn't all have to be beer that we make fun of. Like we can make a lager that you want to take home to your mom.
Yeah. No, that makes
uh,
sense.
so yeah, you're seeing that, and I think there's who is it in Davis? Sudwork.
Yes.
I think they made a like a IPL, they called it. So India Pale Lager. And maybe I should just give a little bit of background. Um, a lot of the beers that we talk about on this podcast are ales, stouts, porters, IPAs, sours. Most of these are ales, and the big difference between an ale and a lager is the yeast that you use. So an ale yeast is a top feeding yeast, so it's sitting at the top of the beer usually fermenting, and it ferments somewhere in the range of like 70, like around 70, 75 degrees. Lagers are bottom feeding yeast, so the yeast is down at the bottom of the beer during fermentation, and they are cold yeast. So like, when you hear Coors Light say it's like cold filtered, cold brewed, or whatever, like that's because they're brewing with lager yeast, which is a cold yeast. So, and they take much longer to ferment. It's a much slower process. They're not as active as the top feeding fermenting ale yeast. So, anyway, when we talk about lagers and pilsners are both the cold yeast, and then most of the ales are brewed with a top feeding warmer yeast. So anyway, this brewery in Davis, California called Sidworks, they had a IPL, which is basically they just took a lager beer and they hopped it.
Interesting.
And I mean, if you really think about it, it's not that innovative, like you're just taking a base beer, adding hops to it. It's not that much different than, an IPA. But it's cool. You get some more like crisper, more honey tones in the backbone of the beer, and it works really well, especially if you use the right hops. Turns out pretty well. So anyway, this is just like ways to do lagers that are also sort of very craft beery, like a IPL would be.
Nice. Well, okay. I'm glad you're here because I could have never described that. The differences. But what I wanted to suggest to this topic is a beer I love is Russian River's STS Pilsner.
Yeah.
So, like, that's an example of, it's one of those beers that's going to have a lot of market share in the non-craft world. But this beer is amazing. It is so good. And, granted, we do make fun of them, but I'll drink a Budweiser or I'll drink a Miller Genuine Draft was the beer of my choice.
Yeah.
Before it was in a craft beer, but I'll definitely still drink them if the occasion is right. I think they have their time, their place. But man, if I can drink one of these STS pills, it's a real special experience. Kind of like drinking any of the other styles that I enjoy. So if that's a trend and they're gonna do more of that stuff, I'm all for it. I'm ready to
Well,
experience those.
yeah, and what I've sort of gleaned from lots of different interviews I've listened to from different head brewers is that a lot of times those are the beers they want to make. Those are the beers that they want to drink.
Interesting.
Like I'll never forget a great interview with the head brewer from Fieldwork in Napa. His favorite beer to make and drink is the Vienna Lager, which is sort of kind of a creamy tasting lager. But anyway, like he just loves that beer. He only wants to make that beer. He was like every other beer they make, they just make as they just have to. It's not fun, but for that's the one he wants to drink. So it's just really cool. I think a lot of brewers, and I think Vinny says the same thing about the STS Pills, the head brewer at Russian River. That's the beer they love to make. And I think when you make like a really good version of a style, like that's the win, Like when you take a style, especially like such a broad like macro style like lager or pilsner, and you make a really good one, like that's kind of cool.
Yeah, that is cool. It's like whenever now I'll probably get hate mail for this too, but
Bring it
whenever
on.
bring it on. Whenever I go to a new pizza place and I've never had before, I always get a cheese pizza because I
Okay.
want to taste. There's a lot of aspects to the pizza, and sorry, we're not going to become a pizza podcast, but
Maybe.
there's elements there, like especially the sauce. The sauce, it can be spicy, it can be sweet. There's so many variants. And if
Yeah.
you get a pizza, if you go to a new pizza place and you get a supreme pizza, you're not going to be able to parse through what's happening. I mean, overall, you might have a great experience with the pizza. But
Yeah.
if it's a new place, just give me the cheese pizza, and then I want to take in the crust and the sauce and the cheese. And then you can start deciding what, toppings you're going to add. But I feel like this is a good analogy for maybe when I go to a new brewery, I should start
Yeah.
with their pilsner or with their,
Definitely.
and not go straight to their stout.
Yeah. I agree. I think that's a great way to tackle a tap list, especially with a new brewery that you don't know. Check out I mean, I do it. I will do it with their flagship IPA usually, just because I want to see like, okay, what can they do? So that's kind of my approach to it. But yeah, I think you could pare it down even more and just go, what's their like simple style taste like?
Mm-hmm.
Um, I was telling you before the podcast a story about sitting at a local brewery by myself, just at the bar, talking to the bartender, and as I sat there for a couple hours, it was kind of crazy to see how many people came up and drank. And this is a brewery that makes really, really good IPAs. They actually have some really great sours usually, but everyone that was coming up was getting the Kolsch, which is, I think it has kind of like, I wish I knew more information on exactly how to brew that, but I think that's sort of very, very right in between kind of a lager and an ale. I don't know if they use like an ale yeast or something. Anyway, something specific. There's something different about Kolsch's, but it's still a very like easy, not complex style. And that was the beer that was selling. I thought for sure everyone coming up was going to be ordering their like flagship IPA. And that just wasn't the case. Or I thought maybe even the sours, because sometimes those are the fruity things that attract people, or like new beer drinkers. But yeah, that Kolsch was flying off the shelf. So I thought that was kind of cool. It was just a good insight into the craft beer drinker. Not everyone wants to come and get slapped in the face with hops. And I
No,
get that. No, I
they
know.
don't want a
I don't. I
15%
don't.
stout.
I don't totally understand it, but I get it.
I also get it.
I mean, I was that drinker at first. I didn't want to get. Um, I hated hoppy beers. You know.
Oh, I remember.
So I mean, even that first time at Russian River, like I went there for you. Like I didn't know. I went there because I thought it would be cool, like to take you there. Like
Yeah.
I didn't know anything about beer. I was more of a cider person at that time. And so, like, again, when I drank Pliny the Elder for the first time, I just thought it was disgusting. And maybe, I don't think STS Pills is that on that flight?
I don't remember, to be honest. I know they recommend, kind of what you were saying is they do recommend when they give you the flight that you start on the light end and work, because what they put at the very end on that flight is the wine barrel aged, like
The ones I liked.
concentration. Yeah, the ones that got you hooked. Basically made you a craft beer drinker. But they put those at the far end and they say work your way up to these because you're gonna blow your palate out once you start
Yeah,
tasting those. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So I don't remember specifically if that STS Pills was on that big flight. But it probably would have been a good beer for me to drink the first time
Yeah, for sure.
and not blind the author.
Yeah. It's probably not one to start on. All right, very good. So let's see. I think that was our craft beers and new styles trend.
Yeah,
Did we cover all of our trends?
I think we did. Do you have another one?
I do not.
Okay. Well,
We
man,
did it. Episode 4 is in the books.
we did it. Go out and get yourself a milkshake IPA to celebrate. Okay.
Or get yourself a stout with cinnamon in it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like I was drinking tonight. Oh, can I add?
Oh,
I'm gonna add
yeah.
this.
So wait, we need to know.
We're gonna bookend this episode with the beer tasting.
I'm ready.
The carbonation sort of died out, right? Like the initial fizziness, so much better.
Really?
Like, yeah, it was gnarly with the like bubbles hitting you and the chocolate and the banana. That was weird. But now with like basically carbonation like almost gone, it's good.
So that's an important observation too, because I think, and I'm not an expert on this, but definitely different beer styles open up a little bit more at different temperatures.
Yeah.
So for stouts especially, when you first take them out of the fridge, I think they're too cold to actually experience the full range of flavors. You almost want to let them warm up a little bit. You don't want them to be warm, but I think right out of the fridge they're too cold. So that's interesting. As the carbonation died, you like to actually like that beer more. So now I have to ask you: is it a rebuy? Does it have the star seal of approval rebuy or
no?
So it's slightly better, but not good enough.
That's less about the beer, more about me.
We're gonna get you there. We're gonna get you.
Hopefully one day I'll find a stout that I just keep wanting to go back and drink over and over again.
Fair enough. So then I will bookend as well. The Matroyshka. I'm 50-50 on this one, Steven.
Oh no.
I don't think
the thumb wavering in the middle of the.
It's wavering. I don't think I'll order it again, but it's not bad. It's a good beer. I will say that, but I just don't think it's my favorite. So I'm gonna give it a wavering thumb. I'm gonna give it a question mark star.
All right.
So we'll see. All right, my friend. Well, I think that will do it for episode 4 of Attenuation.
Yep.
My name is Jason, and of course, my co-host here is my best friend from 8th grade, Steven.
And that's me. Sorry, I missed my cue.
That's you. And we are bidding you adieu and raising a glass and saying cheers until episode 5.
Cheers. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening, and goodbye.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Attenuation, a beer podcast. Don't forget to hit that subscribe or follow button, and we'll catch you next week. Cheers.